Hello, and welcome to Talking with Trans People. My name is host Eric, and beside me I have Spacey, who is a fount of romantic wisdoms and knowledge about human relations. Together, he and I today shall dissect 5 important things about love and relationships that I made a little document on. So, as you shall see, the 5 things are in this document. Thing number 1 is make me feel. The reason I included this is because somebody in the comments put down the following observation, that I had said the most important thing in a relationship is that the person you're with make you feel good. And the commenter indicated you're trying to abdicate responsibility for your own feelings. Other people can't make you feel any way. You're responsible for your feelings yourself, and if you say they make you feel that way, then you're trying to put onto them what's really your own responsibility.
Well, such a comment demonstrates a lack of understanding.
Okay,
of what the person's trying to say, at least in this case.
I mean, it may be, it
Right.
could represent a number of things. It could represent sort of like a general advocacy in favor of TI over FI. It could represent genuine not understanding what I'm trying to get at, or it could be represent sort of like
Probably just something someone told them before.
it could be that. It could be a particularist response to experience in their own life. Like, I had this experience, I framed it this way, and now I'm universalizing it.
Right.
So regardless of the motivation, I think that it's certainly reductive and somewhat disingenuous probably to say that other people can't make you feel things. There's obviously, you can make somebody feel something by violating their rights, harming them physically, stealing their stuff, bullying them, whatever. But it is true in general that there's a manner in which people use that expression in relationships that is itself unhealthy. I think there are plenty of times when somebody says, you know, if doing nothing is responsible for making you feel, then that's bullshit. If doing something negative is responsible for making you feel, then that's legitimate. Agree?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Remember, friends, in order to access all of the internal wisdom, Spacey is required by the Oracle's code to display an affect of disinterest. Frame of self-checking. This topic came up because what I discovered myself doing outside the restaurant. I was at the restaurant, Spacey was there, my mom was there, and I wanted to go out and smoke a cigarette. I went outside, I smoked it, I was sitting out there smoking it slowly and looking at this newspaper that I got from inside the restaurant, and I immediately got this thought of, I better hurry back in there, because Mom might try to get up from the table, and then I'm going to get yelled at. So I've been in sort of an ongoing state of self-checking in that regard, knowing that I can't deviate at all from what's defensible without it without producing some sort of negation from my partner. It's a heavy state of being to be in. Like, most people have probably been in some sort of relationship in their life where, at least for some stretch of time, you feel like you're walking on eggshells around somebody. I never felt like I was walking on eggshells around Kimberly exactly, but I did apparently internalize this behaving on eggshells thing.
I mean, for a while, I felt like I was walking on eggshells around everybody.
Really?
Yeah, it's like anybody could do any crazy emotional shit at any time. Like,
But see, obviously, my response to encountering negativity from Kimberly in the relationship was to try to understand what was causing it by listening to her words, and then modify my behavior to avoid causing it. The problem was that was not a good strategy, because what was really making her angry was just being with me. And then she just found things to channel that through. So, yeah, that's something about love that's important, is remember that it changes your frame of reference about yourself. You go into a relationship quite confident that you know who you are, and you know what it means to be in a relationship, what you want it to be, and all that kind of shit, right? By the end of the relationship, you're so deeply embedded in the narratives of that relationship, it's very easy to forget who you were beforehand and what sort of general demeanor or attitude you had And it's hard to note what sort of ontological weight a relationship is put upon you until after it's gone and you recognize the difference. So those are my thoughts on that. Spacey, I'm sure, will be survived. Not any further comment on that one. Mourning. Another thing that I read in the comments, my friend Cameron put there that for him, mourning takes as long as the amount of time he invested into the relationship. Which just seems like, what? And then Peter Dennis commented that the normal thing for most people is half the amount of time that you spent in a relationship is required to mourn the ending of the relationship. I mean, I find that a tricky calculus because to me, at the end of a relationship, there are two main factors going on. Your stories you were spending about you and that person are all dead, and number two, whatever the intense pressure was that caused you to break up is all relieved. That's my experience of it.
Well, fuck. Goddamn.
I mean, so it makes it mourning a tricky question. Like when
right.
my dog died, I was in deep mourning for a solid week from the moment she died until a week afterwards about. But my dog was not... Her presence in my life didn't come with a package of undesired weight along with a package of presumably desired or enjoyed aspects. It wasn't a mixed bag like that, really.
I mean, I have found that, for me at least, it's generally true that if I don't know someone very long, I wouldn't mourn too much. Like what happened to that dude I knew in college. You know, he ended up overdosing on drugs and dying. But I mean, and I had invested an actual decent amount into the relationship because I thought he was a cool guy. But at the end of the day, I only knew him for like a year and a half.
Right.
And so.
Right. So yeah, I do get that there's mourning to happen. I also experienced with Candace, after I left Candace, that I really experienced the mourning around the holidays. Because at that point I had these SI associations. What's Thanksgiving mean? Thanksgiving means what I've done for Thanksgiving each of the last, 14 years. Hung out with Candace's family. What does Christmas mean? Christmas means, Candace, when do we have to go do our holiday pictures or all that kind of stuff, I have no other SI thing to draw from in the holiday time except for the most recent experiences of this relationship that's gone on for quite a long time. So, in those circumstances, I think also holidays link to me with an SI retreat period in a way. It's like Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff, they aren't for extroverted intuition. Therefore, when I spend some time taking care of myself or whatever. So, I expect to mourn this relationship more actively and at least consciously later on, a couple months from now. I'll get a wave of sadness about it. Unless I'm neck deep in new pussy, in which case it goes. Just joking. Sort of.
Speaking the truth here.
No, sort of joking, I said. Mostly joking. But you never know. I entertain the possibility. Number 4, new love. Of course, here at the end of the relationship causes one to reflect back upon how different, or what if it was different at the beginning. And I've read before lots of shit about hormones of new love causing people to not deal with that person as they will long term once those hormones wear off. Kimberly and I were pretty lovey-dovey at first, and we didn't seem to have any huge problems. But the thing that I did during my new love phase was try to establish a bunch of frames and language that we were going to agree upon, and that would drive our narratives going forward. She was not open to that. She resisted it, and I've basically been fighting those battles ever since. So I do think that it's important to do the beginning of a relationship right and make sure that you don't do damage right away, that you end up having fucking come back 50 times later,
Yeah.
But I also think it's important to recognize that you're not a very good decision maker necessarily during periods of new love.
Yeah. It's like...
What do you think about it, Spacey?
It's one of those things like, yeah, you're right. You should try to keep a cool head about certain things, I guess, and like you said, make sure you're using that time to do certain things. But again, it's like, I mean, you're gonna do whatever you do. You know, hopefully next time you do it, it's a little bit more informed and you do it differently. But it's, you know, I mean, you can't really, I think, worry about it too much. Like if it's the right person, it'll probably work out. You know.
Right. Of course, washing those hormones, it's difficult for anybody, I think, to know whether it's the right person.
Right. That's also true.
It's almost a double bind kind of a situation. Mm-hmm. The only way to meaningfully relate to another person is through your feelings. But if you're using your feelings in the wash of young love like that, or new love, or whatever, then they're not good guides to decision making, because that's not how you're going to feel long term.
Well, that's why it's best to make sure that you can relate to them, intellectually, in terms of shared values and shit like that before you get in deep.
And when I did say in that video, I want somebody who makes me feel good, like who makes me feel as though what I really meant is who makes me feel as though she's proud of me, she's happy to be with me, she considers herself lucky, so she doesn't mind when a couple little bad things happen, or a couple of requirements are expected of her. She realizes that she's still getting a great deal, and doesn't. I'm really sort of on one level doesn't lose sight of that. Like, if I get the right chick who genuinely loves me and who values me for who I am and what I have to offer, and who's able to look big picture and say, I'm comparing against the alternatives. This guy is great compared to these previous guys I've gotten, or compared to what I think I could get, or something like that. Not against an ideal. I'm never going to be perfect, so I'm looking, I want to avoid that shit, right? But because people do make you feel bad if they're telling you all the time that they don't like you and that they think you're annoying and that you're bad. You'll eventually start to feel bad, kind of, at least a little bit, even if you've got good self-esteem. I think there's one more of these things.
Yeah.
SI personhood and experience. So, the point of this one is SI people really become what they experience. Mm-hmm. And there's this almost it's like destiny almost to create reality that matches their experience once their experience gets set in solidly enough. So I think it's very critical what happens to SI DOMs when they're young.
Well, that's the danger of any being in service to SI.
How do you think that plays out exactly? Can you explain that further?
I think basically their past experiences gradually restrict the scope from within their NE can freely bounce around, sort of.
Well, I think it somewhat links to the fact that if you're an SI person, if you're an ISFJ, and your nature is to turn to others to help you. Your nature is going to be somewhat helpless in certain circumstances that require a lot of intellectual improvisation. Not just helpless, but prone to making mistakes that make things worse, potentially. So, young on, they've got to practice and test out this idea of putting trust in the vision, will, decision-making, thoughts of others. If those others don't uphold that trust, in other words, they don't actually have that ISFJ's interest in mind, and that ISFJ never really learns to hand over her interests and need to worry, because an ISFJ, because they're not very good at predicting rather random shit happening and dealing with random shit, they're constantly worried about everything that could possibly happen.
Right.
If they have somebody in whom they actually trust, they can delegate some of that worry. They can trust the person who says, you don't need to worry about this area of thing. And then the ISFJ can be freed up to be somewhat happier, not constantly fretting. If, however, the ISFJ doesn't trust that other person to handle the thing that he's saying she doesn't need to worry about, then she's going to worry about it anyway and also have expectations of him handling it. But those expectations are going to be handling it exactly the way she wants it handled because she's so worried that he's going to not handle it that she sort of creates the reality that she expects to see. Which brings me back to the prime directive, which is people want to match expectations with reality. If your head is filled with negative expectations, then you will make them happen. And
all those negative expectations are like, there's strong associations with those, impressions.
Right. And the thing is, to a certain extent, every SI user, wherever it is in the first four, has the ability to reframe things. In other words,
yes.
If an SI user is not only subject to the impressions of their experiences, they are subject to their choice of externalized words, which comprises a kind of experience they have an impression of as well. If they're telling the story again and again of how a given flaw is minor and easily overlooked in the company of these very big positive things that I keep talking about, or new positive things, I'm looking for positive things, and I'm telling positive stories all the time, then that becomes my SI impression of my experience. Experience is subjective. So SI, we treat it as though it's objective. People testify on the stand, that was the guy who robbed me. It's not reliable at all. And you have the power to change the past as well as the future.
Well, it's like they're either trying to avoid more bad experiences, right? Or they're looking for more good experiences.
Who?
SI users.
Avoid more bad experiences or look for more good experiences.
The NE is what's kind of helping them look for, more experiences to maybe like replace the bad ones. It's like...
So do you think that in my now defunct relationship that she was trying to avoid bad experiences, or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's part of the neuroticism in there, I think. It's like, I don't want this to happen again.
So why was I unable to explain to her that behavior was critical in the creation of the negative experience?
Because she wasn't listening to you.
But why couldn't I get her to listen to me?
She didn't want to.
Okay, but why did she not want to listen to me?
I don't know exactly why. Do you?
No,
you're asking me, but...
Well, what I'm saying is this. Like, you're a human being who says, like, I want to be in a relationship. I'm tired of dating. I want to be in a relationship. I want to be in a long-term relationship, and I'm looking for the right person. Now, I don't think she did lie, right? But what I'm saying is, how can you go into any kind of relationship without any sort of frame about what it ought to be like?
Well, obviously, she has no idea what it ought to be like. Right?
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
And I was unable to. I can't sculpt her experience well enough to force the stories.
Right.
If it's perfect, the story is you didn't fail this time.
Right.
Whoop-de-doo.
Exactly.
So there's no way to change things.
Their stories are old and long. There you go.
Yeah, just like my penis. And on that note, we'll end this video and say thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.
I have a new interest in love, dating, women, chicks, relationship topic stuff because of my, obviously, chapter change here in my life. So you may expect to see a couple more such videos coming up in the future. I'll be sure to access the amazing young person style wisdom of Spacey, who can provide a generational angle on this that keeps you young people realizing that this is relevant. It speaks to you.